Hey everybody, I'm Dr. Chris Nelson, and today's video I want to have a conversation with you about a challenging case that we started with digital treatment planning and digital acquisition like 3D scans, and we're actually pivoting with a unique problem-solving opportunity to do traditional techniques. And this video is really geared towards dental professionals and also other technicians, lab technicians, maybe even the manufacturers. And I just want to walk you through a case where we've had to use our core value of success in the sandbox and do our best to get a really great outcome. So follow me along on this. If you're a patient or just someone watching this video, I hope you find it interesting. But let's take a look at this case. So our patient, we're going to call him the man. And a little bit of background on this patient. Our patient, the man, he is a really cool dude. He has an interesting job. He is in kind of the more work with your hands kind of profession, and we can relate to each other because I work with my hands, right? And he has very reasonable expectations, but also he wants a result of something that's really durable. And his scenario is he had a very long span bridge off of several front teeth. So he had some missing teeth on the front with a long span bridge. That long span bridge failed, and we went ahead and had one of our surgical partners at Team Perio, Dr. Blasingame, place some implants, and those implants have integrated, and our plan is and was to restore those implants with custom abutments made by our lab, and then a zirconia bridge. The patient really prioritizes strength, so he did not even really ask us to do layering of porcelain, but we decided to do a little bit of layering. But the main goal is not necessarily shade or the most beautiful appearance, but it's actually function and something that lasts a long time. And so that's our goal. If that's the patient's goal, it's something reasonable, and so we're going to strive for that. And he's the man, and he's actually not been wearing a stay plate, a flipper, or a custom temporary or anything like that. So he's been fine having no front teeth. He has a kind of a longer mustache, so and the way his lip position is, it's not like you can super see the teeth anyways. You know, if he did that, then you'd probably be able to see that the teeth were missing. But he's been fine in his professional life and his reality, and he works with people, but he's been fine, and he's decided to not have the temporary. So where we started, implants were placed, they looked good. We decided to do our 3D scanner workflow with our Trios 3-shape Trios 5 scanner, our fancy scanner here. And this thing's awesome, and we use it a lot. And so we have 3 implants in the anterior, and we have a 5-unit bridge. And these 3 implants are spaced out in orientations such that we're doing custom abutments. They're going to be anodized in with gold, so they're going to look, the titanium is going to look like a gold color. And then we are designing the bridge, and our lab in Shasta Lake is doing that. And so that's where we started. We took our scans, we took X-rays of the scan bodies on the implants, and we moved forward. So, and again, a lot of these cases, we're going to do a custom temporary, like a plastic version of the bridge before we do the final one. Well, in this case, because the patient is really cool and he didn't want to do that, he didn't want the extra expense, and we felt like we had a good enough idea of where we were headed that we could just go to final. Well, sometimes that presents some challenges. So we went ahead and we got our custom abutments, we seated them, we test fit the bridge, and lo and behold, it fit okay. But then as we tightened the abutments, seated things fully, torqued the abutments fully, and test fitted the bridge, we found out that there was some divergence in the abutments or some errors. I felt like it was slight enough where if we did some smoothing on the abutments to bring in the wide ones, that we could get the bridge seated all the way. So I attempted that. And during that delivery appointment, we kind of realized that, hey, this isn't perfect. We're going to pivot. And what I did is I actually did new scans. And I said, hey, let's print new models. Let's cross-reference these models and let's see if they match. So if we have our prior models and we have new scans with new scan bodies, and print them both, put the abutments on everything, double check everything, and see if they fit. So we did that, and I also said, hey, make me a verification jig. And on this one, I was okay with having the verification jig be on top of the abutments. And I said, just in case we can't seat this bridge, if you get the models and everything looks good, then great. Let's do any changes you need to do, but send it back to me. We'll try to deliver it again. But I said if that verification jig doesn't seat passively, then that bridge isn't going to fit, right? So, and this is where it's important to have some old school techniques and technology available, because I have some compassion towards our colleagues that are 100% digital and they don't have impression material in their office or don't have the ability to pivot to an older technique that actually works really well. Because these printers, they're very accurate. This scanner is I mean, they came out with a newer version, but it's essentially the same thing. As I understand it, maybe has some improvements. But that scanner is amazing. And the printers that our lab is using, I think they go down to 20 microns or something very, very small. And the workflows we're using are all the latest and greatest as we understand it. So things should fit. But what if you don't have the ability to do the other techniques? So anyways, that's why I wanted to make this video. So what we did is we seated that verification jig on top of the abutments. I torqued the abutments to 35. We have some x-rays prior on the prior seating of the abutments just to make sure that they weren't binding on some bone or tissue. And overall, I felt the abutments were down all the way, but the verification jig was not seating passively. So it was kind of a non-starter on the bridge, which was a bummer. Patient is the man. He's really cool. And he's like, that's okay. You guys are going to get it and make it right. So we went ahead and I sectioned the verification jig in between the three abutments. So I sectioned here. You can see pictures of that. And then I made sure to separate those sections completely. We seated them on the implants. I verified that they were seated fully. And then there's a very positive connection there. So it was very much like it wasn't moving. So seated all the way. And then I reluted those sectioned pieces with bulky Z+, so it's a composite. And I let that chair side sit, sit without curing it, because it has a dual cure mechanism. So I didn't want any shrinkage or any expansion or contraction during the set time. So we let it set pretty much all the way, finish it up with the curing light. And then we had our verification jig reattached to the abutments. First, I took a bite registration with that verification jig in place. And then I plugged up the access holes with wax, and it's like a silicone-based wax, which is really cool. And then we took a polyvinyl impression, so some light body under the tissue to capture the tissue under the verification jig, and around that, and then a heavy body over the top of that. So we let that set fully. I let it get really firm, and then took that out. Of course, inside the impression is the verification jig, and we had our bite registration. We already have opposing 3D printed models. And then we're going to go ahead and send that to the lab and have them pour up a stone model with implant analogs. Now, some other things to consider, and I already talked to Travis at the lab about this. Could we or should we have taken a fixture level impression? Should he have sent me a verification jig that was on top of the fixtures? That's fine. We already have these abutments. They're in good shape. I did polish them on the outsides, but they're in great shapes. The margins are unchanged. So I think that we can still use those custom abutments and remanufacture the bridge. But let me know what you think, and just be kind if you're going to leave a comment, because our goal is A+ work, and I have a lot of other videos showing that we do that, and this is in process. I also think it speaks to the relationships that we're trying to build with our patients. So I want long-term relationships with our patients. I want long-term relationships with our lab, with everyone on our team, and in order to do that, we have to have really good communication. And so this process is a reflection of that communication and that interest of getting it right for our patient. And I'm really looking forward to helping our patient, the man, get his anterior bridge that he's been wanting. And I think we're not too far from getting that just right. And I will keep working to make that bridge be a success for a long time. So anyways, let me know what you think. I'd appreciate some kind comments. And then if you're a dental professional that you're going saying, hey man, this problem has already been solved, I'd love to connect with you as well. I do think that by putting good information out in the universe, I think that you get good information back, and we're all trying to do better. And the modern technology is amazing, but you have to be able to pivot, and I think this is a good example of that. So let me know what you all think, and thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video, and Dr. Chris Nelson checking out.